what I've learned from President Carter is that, he's just a decent human being. I think at the end of the day, we all want to be remembered as just being decent humans. His politics was one thing, his time in office was another, but his work, his service to humanity has been something that we all can take a lesson out of the page of his book from. Just understanding that our service is so much more important than anything else, our title, our position, our egos, that the service is much more important. And we've seen that throughout President Carter's lifetime, whether that was winning the Nobel Peace Prize or even in his 90s, still building homes. And then the work that he still contributes to the Plains area and areas across the state and certainly across the world is unmatched. And so our hearts and our prayers absolutely goes out to President Carter and the entire Carter family. I'll never forget meeting President Carter and just the small exchange that we had. I will never forget meeting Mrs. Carter and the small exchange that we had. But he's a great man, and I hope that more will aspire to serve as Jimmy Carter did. As President of the United States, he did everything he could to serve above board, to not get involved in senseless wars, to tell the truth every chance that he got. And outside of his presidency, he did everything that he could to service mankind. And so I hope that we would take a lesson out of his life, and then just make sure that we're serving people, making service the top of our priorities. So I met him Father's Day of 2016 or 2017. I believe it was Father's Day of 2017. I met President Carter, and he was giving a sermon on David and David's life journey, about no matter how many times we fall, whether that's personally or as a society, that we have the opportunity to get up and make things better. And then after the exchange, he kind of spoke to the folks in attendance and asked, if you were there by yourself, raise your hand. And I raised my hand, and he said, well, I guess you have to explain to me why you're lonely and don't have any friends. And the entire facility, the church, just burst into laughter. But he had such a great sense of humor. And I was trying to figure out what to call him. I said, do I call you President Carter? Do I call you Mr. Carter? He said, just call me Mr. President. But he had such a great sense of humor. But that was just in one setting in a church service that everyone was privy to go to. But we're talking about his service to mankind for decades, starting his life out in public housing, going into the military, having a service career there, running for governor, running for the state senate, becoming president of the United States, all from a small town of Plains, Georgia. The effects that he had on this state and certainly this world are effects that we'll be feeling for a lifetime. And so I just hope that we'll be able to remember President Carter while he rests at home, for just the great human being that he was. Certainly, I'll never forget the experience meeting his wife, Mrs. Carter, First Lady Carter, and then certainly will never forget meeting President Carter. It was an experience that I still hold dear to this day. Our picture hangs on my wall in my office. I think, his work with housing has always been something that has stood out, because what president do you know not only talks about it, but actually gets out there and builds houses, build homes. His work with the Carter Center to make sure that countries have fresh water, to make sure that are there any gaps in services in other areas that they're filled through his philanthropic efforts. I mean, what else could we ask for in a public servant? In politics, you don't always step at the plate and call your shot and hit a home run. That's just not how it works, but you always step up and swing. And I think for President Carter, that's definitely a legacy there. It's that he always stepped up to the plate, he always swung, and whether he made a home run or made it to second, he always stood up to the plate, and he always swung as best as he could, in office and out of office. And that's the type of public service that we should look for, not only in our president and our federal leaders, but right here at home as well. Having a leader who's willing to step up and swing. And I think that's something that we should all be grateful for when thinking about President Carter. And he's such a humble man. I mean, he's not someone who walks with his ego on his shoulder. He's a humble man, and he has very few words to share. But when he speaks, oh my God, his words are profound. And so we thank God for the legacy of President Carter and the work that is still continuing to do. He's not gone yet. I believe that President Carter is going to be the fighter that he is, and whatever happens from here is ordained. But we want to thank God for him, and we definitely want to just remember the work that he did while he was able to do